Shanks versus Luffy, Usopp versus Loki, and Blackbeard waiting for his turn to collect the strongest mythical zone devil fruit. Even though Wano is already one of my favorite arcs in all of One Piece, there has been no other arc I've been as excited for and as anxious about as the legendary kingdom of the mighty giants, Elbaf. Because I'm convinced that it's not only gonna be the Straw Hats' next destination after Wano, but also the most important arc for the endgame of One Piece after Laugh Tale itself. And today I want to try and predict as well as I can how all these epic events might unfold themselves during the Elbaf arc.
巨人たちの住むこのエルバフの地に巨人族と人間との交友の架け橋となりながら
Hi, my name is Manu, and even though as someone so obsessed with Japanese culture that I packed my stuff and moved to Tokyo, I've been enjoying the ongoing Japan-inspired Wano Kuni arc a lot. It has been going on for a while now. To be precise, it started with chapter 909 back in July of 2018, which was 4 years ago. I wasn't even thinking about doing YouTube at that point. So as much as I'm enjoying what I can just hope to be the actual climax of this arc at the moment, I found it incredibly refreshing to look ahead and think about what the future of One Piece might bring. And in that hopefully not all too distant future, I see a rocky island in the shadow of a gigantic tree, inhabited by the most powerful mythical beings imaginable.
ここエルバフは初めて見る自分サイズの人、家
Cue epic Viking music. Instead of Japanese mythology, sakura trees, and samurai, we'll have Nordic mythology, snowy mountain peaks, and Vikings. And just so you know, next to Japan of course, Norway has been my favorite place I've ever lived. And honestly, I think Elbaf's layout will be heavily inspired by that. With icy winds, long nights, and banquets with a lot of alcohol, the most stunning place I have ever laid eyes on are the so-called Lofoten Islands in the far north of Norway. Please tell me that this doesn't look exactly like what we've seen of Elbaf's coastline so far. Honestly, if there's just one place on Earth I really have to recommend you must see, it is this one. Okay, so now that we've set the right mood, how likely is it that we will even go to Elbaf in the first place? After all, it hasn't been officially confirmed at all if we're actually gonna go there, and author Eiichiro Oda has to keep pushing back his goal for finishing One Piece as it is. So the only way for an Elbaf arc to exist is if it heavily contributes to the climax of the series, pushes the story and its development further, and has a clear connection to Wano. And for full disclosure, it is of course absolutely possible that Elbaf will be skipped or just be referenced in passing by Oda as well. That being said, there is a really good reason why me and large parts of the fandom find that possibility unlikely and basically take a visit to Elbaf for granted. It has been foreshadowed as far back as chapter 115, when the Straw Hats arrived on Little Garden, where they met the giants Story and Broggy.
その誇りはまたエルバフの地に受け継がれる永遠の宝なんだ。
There are so many important character arcs that are all bound to culminate into Elbaf. At the center of it all is undoubtedly Usopp. I've just recently made a full video on Usopp's character development and why I think Elbaf will be his big arc. So if you haven't seen it already, I strongly recommend that you check that one out afterwards. But all you have to know for now is that Usopp has been forging relationships and friendships with the giants of Elbaf throughout the story, where he has gained their respect and loyalty, and on more than one occasion has promised to go to Elbaf one day to become a brave warrior of the sea like his giant friends.
あんたらのことさ、俺はいつかあんたたちのようになりてえ。
And don't worry, I'll be telling you what I believe will happen with Usopp in just a little bit. The other character that has major connections to the giants is of course none other than the Empress herself, Big Mom, who not only grew up on Elbaf, but who also has a crazy obsession with integrating the giants into her ideal world, even though the giants despise her for her actions as a child.
けじめをつけねばエルバフのしきたりを怪我した者に
But surprisingly enough, Big Mom isn't the only emperor with ties to this island. In my character analysis on Shanks, I explored the strong ties Shanks has to Nordic mythology. In fact, not only does he sail on a Viking ship, but his entire character seems to be inspired by the Nordic god Tyr. And in that same video, I explored the idea that Elbaf might be in fact under the protection of the Red Hair Pirates, and since Wano will be the arc where Luffy will finally rise into the ranks of the Yonko, I think it's about time that he met his mentor again, now that he's become the great pirate that Shanks wanted him to be.
もうすぐ会えそうだなルフィ
And aside from all these character arcs, it seems like Elbaf might be home to the father tree Adam, from which wood the 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚅 was made as well. It has been speculated that this tree might be the main entrance to the Sky Islands, but honestly, no matter what it will turn out to be, it will play some important role in the lore of the story, should it actually be there. And if you watch really carefully, in the next clip you can see something that looks suspiciously like a giant tree trunk in the back.
巨人族と人間との交友の架け橋となりながら
And this might be a bit of a stupid argument, maybe, but if Oda had planned to skip going to Elbaf altogether, he surely would have shown it off to us in all its glory, instead of shrouding it in so much mystery and barely giving us a glimpse of its shoreline. Oh, and we have this pretty telling color spread of the Straw Hats as Vikings. So, with all that being said, I now want to share with you my timeline of the things that could and in my opinion should happen during the Elbaf arc. And while I base all of this on everything that has been foreshadowed in the story, keep in mind that I could be completely wrong about this. That being said, I do believe that there is a pretty good chance a good chunk of this will happen in some way or form. So, after a long and gruesome battle, we finally depart Wano. Luffy has defeated Kaido and established himself as an emperor, and the borders of Wano have finally been opened. With the monster trio incapable of doing anything for a while after their big fights, it was the Straw Hat Grand Fleet that had to come to their help when it looked like both Luffy and Kaido were about to be disposed of. This could either be by the world government or Blackbeard. This way, the crew is saved and Wano is able to start rebuilding itself. Now, while the Grand Fleet had sworn their loyalty to Luffy, most of them are actually loyal to Usopp as well. And with the big three knocked out for a while, Usopp finds himself in command by accident as a substitute captain, starting off his arc by fulfilling 2 of his lies, leading thousands of men and being a captain. However, since it was by accident, Usopp will most likely do a pretty bad job leading at first. After arriving on Elbaf, I can see the first half of the arc focusing on the culture of the giants and the issues of their nation. During Whole Cake Island, Prince Loki seems to have been set up as the main villain here.
それがなんと巨人国エルバフの王子
Loki, who we know from Nordic mythology as a trickster and manipulator, has somehow managed to take control of the giants, possibly getting rid of Dorian Broggy, and has even convinced them to forget their hatred of Big Mom and made them allow him to marry Lola, though she refused in the end. Now, Loki is confronted by another trickster and manipulator, Usopp, who has gained respect and loyalty among many of the Elbaf giants. Both of them might be quite similar in terms of their personality, but while Usopp values bravery and wants to be like the giants, Loki mostly values himself. At this point, I think it would be a waste if Oda didn't give Usopp a Mjolnir-like hammer to parallel Thor versus Loki. Soon, Usopp tries to expose Loki's trickery, possibly triggered by the arrival of Big Mom, siding with Loki and maybe Lola, who Big Mom will try to marry off once again. Usopp counts on the other Straw Hats to stop Loki, which doesn't happen with Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji still out of the game. And so finally, after seeing the giants suffer and being backed by Nami to help Lola, he ends up doing the right thing, taking matters into his own hand and challenging Loki to a duel. Now we have the classic theme of David with his slingshot versus the giant Goliath. The fight itself goes on just as you imagine. Usopp will try using tricks, hammers, dials, and even his observation haki against Loki, but despite a few minor successes, nothing really works. He's a giant after all. Finally, Loki hurts Usopp so badly that he almost seems to win the fight. And this, in combination with Usopp's previous failure as a leader, pushes him into despair. This is where Usopp's Conqueror's Haki kicks in, something that I discussed in detail in his previous video. Using Conqueror's Haki, Usopp knocks down the giant prince of Elbaf, terrifying all those watching and earning the respect of the giants, who will call him a brave warrior of the sea. A tale so epic that it's only worthy of such a legendary character as God Usopp. And thus, another lie has come true, Usopp having Conqueror's Haki. Not only does he liberate the giants of Elbaf, but he also gains the right to lead the Grand Fleet and the giants, numbering 8,000 men, into battle behind Luffy at the end of the story. And most importantly, he convinces everyone to subscribe to this channel. A true legend. This is where the second half of this arc begins. Luffy and the others just got back on their feet in time to witness Usopp's victory. Amid the celebrations, a ship arrives at the harbor, a Viking ship. Luffy turns around and sees Shanks and his men walking towards them. Luffy of course starts grinning and runs towards Shanks, shouting and waving, but the Emperor just pulls out his sword with a stern face and prepares to attack Luffy. Visibly confused by this, Luffy keeps running and only in the last moment reacts to Shanks' attack. The sky splits above Elbaf, and suddenly, Shanks smiles. He puts his arm around Luffy and congratulates him on his accomplishments in Wano. As it turns out, he's the protector of Elbaf and thanks Usopp for taking care of things in his absence. That night, the Straw Hats and the Red Hair Pirates have their first big banquet together, Luffy and Shanks now on one level with each other. During the festivities, a dark shape walks into town. As he reaches the fires, we can see his face. Mihawk has arrived, who has sought out his old rival after the abandonment of the Warlord system, together with Perona, who bring news that Blackbeard is on his way to Elbaf as well and will arrive in a couple of days. As if these news didn't matter at all, Shanks invites Mihawk to drink, and while Perona reunites with Zoro, he reveals that he's in possession of the last road poneglyph and challenges Luffy to a Davy backfight for it to test his strength and that of his crew. We then get a number of great contests between the Straw Hats and the Red Hair Pirates, where each of them shows off their skills and proves their worth, including the long-awaited match between Zoro and Mihawk. After teaching everyone new tricks and techniques and giving Luffy some pieces of advice, Shanks and the others push Luffy to leave the island before Blackbeard arrives. In order to give Luffy a head start for Laugh Tale, but also as the patron of Elbaf, he will stay and face the man who gave him his scar. Probably things will turn out quite differently, but I hope you enjoyed this version of events nonetheless. You should click here if you want to learn more about Usopp's role in Elbaf and why he might unlock Conqueror's Haki. Zoom.